Hello and welcome to this video. So first of all, thank you very much for all the support you gave to the React tutorials I made. Frankly, I thought I would get only like single digit of views because the tutorials were pretty long and maybe boring also, and in general shorter videos are more popular, but turns out there are some people who really want to learn. If you haven't checked them out yet, I will add the links in the description and also somewhere here or here, so you can learn React from those two parts. Coming over to this video, so as some of you requested me, by the way, again, I will highly appreciate if you can comment publicly in under the video instead of direct messaging me on LinkedIn. Yeah. So as some of you asked me to make a video on building Express server also. So in this video we will be building an Express server, and also it will be connected to a database, in this case which will be MongoDB. Coming over to what you need to know. So Express is basically a JavaScript based framework. So you will need some basic knowledge of JavaScript. It would be great if you know how asynchronous JavaScript works, but even if you do not know, I will explain the bare requirement of what we will be using in the Express tutorial. So if you want a dedicated video on asynchronous JavaScript and all the things you need to care about them, then I can also make that. Just publicly comment, please. Yeah. So one thing is, Express is very much flexible. Now that is the best and also probably the worst thing, because it's best because you get to know how things work. You build things from scratch. It's like you join the Lego blocks yourself. Now coming over to why it's worse, because if you just want to finish maybe your assignment or build a project to put on your resume, then even without learning much, you can implement any functionality you want. So irrespective of what code you write, the functionality will work. In front end, you are kind of forced to learn stuff, but when you are working with Express, irrespective of how bad or inefficient your code is, things will still work. So if you really want to learn, then this video will be for you. And again, this video might be a little long because I won't just tell you how to use Express, because that's probably covered in 100 other videos. I will also tell you how you should approach things and what are the best way to do things, not just implementing a functionality, implementing it in a good way. Cool. So let's not waste a lot of time and get to the screen. Okay, so I have an empty folder here. Let me increase the font size. And terminal is the font size here also. Now since we are building an Express app, we obviously need to install Express, but before doing that we need to initialize the npm. So just write npm init -y. I will explain. So if you just do npm init, it will ask you for all the details, name, description, blah blah blah. If you give -y, it will automatically create a bare minimum thing. So once you run this, it will create a package.json. You can open it and see whatever is inside this. Now once this is done, we have initialized npm. Now we can install Express. So simply write npm install Express. By the way, instead of writing the whole word install, you can also write just I. So npm install Express. Ignore these things. Yeah, npm install Express, press enter. Cool. So installation is done. You can see in package.json in dependencies we have Express version 4.18.2. If the major version, which is 4 in the case, is different in your case, then you might have to see things because probably a lot of things will change. We also have a package log.json and we have a node modules. Now as a starting point, let's create a main file index.js, and we have to import Express in it. Now let me increase the font size. Yeah. So now there are two types of imports. First is, let me just write it here. First is common JS modules, also known as CJS. Other is ES6 modules. Cool. So when you are using ES6 modules, you import it like this: import Express from Express. So if you have seen my React tutorial also, you probably remember we import React from React or something like this. Cool. So this is similar, but by default, when we are working on Node, which is the fundamental runtime environment for our Express server, the common thing is, the default thing is common JS modules, which is CJS, and in that we need to import it like this. So const Express equal to require Express. So this is the default mode. This is the latest mode and many people use it, but you cannot directly use it. Let me show you. Just do this much: import Express from Express, open the terminal, and simply run the file. So to run the file, you just write node index.js, and probably it should give an error. Let's see. Yeah, cannot use import statement outside a module. So it should be saying how to, yeah, set type module in the package.json or use .mjs extension. So we will do exactly what it's saying. So let's go back to VS Code, open our package.json. Let me write it here. So type module. Yep. Once you write it, now let's open the terminal again, clear it, run it. Yeah, perfect. So we just imported it, and I'm just showing how you can import it like this, because this is the latest thing many people uses. This is the default and probably the old thing. So you might also want to set the type module. If you don't want to set the type module, everywhere in the tutorial, whenever I'm importing like this, you can import like this. That's all the change you will need. Cool. So for now, let's remove these comments. Let's remove this. Okay. So we have imported our Express. To start the Express server, we just initialize it by calling the function. So const app equal to Express. Cool. Now again, if you have seen my React tutorial, when we do npm start there, it starts the server, or it starts the website at localhost 3000 by default, and if the port is occupied, then other things. But anyways, it by default start at localhost 3000. But in this case, we have to particularly specify on what port we want to run our server. So I will create a variable port. By the way, I am putting it as uppercase because it is constant. So let's just put 8000 here. And now we want to say our app to run on this port, or our server to listen on this port. Okay, so app.listen and port. Once we do it, the listen actually can take more than one arguments. So if you just give it one argument port, then it will run on this port. If you give it two arguments, then it will call the function once it has started listen. So console.log, let's use template string here, server started on port and port. Again, we are using arrow functions here. I hope you know it, otherwise just Google it. Cool. So let's try running node index.js. So as you see, server started on port 8000. And obviously there is no way right now to confirm that server is really running. So now let's start with actual building the routes or endpoints. So what is route or endpoint? Every URL you hit is known as route or endpoint. Similar to we have routes in front end, in back end also they are also called routes, or sometimes they are referred to as endpoint. Now there are different methods. So there are get requests, there are post requests, there are put requests, there are patch requests, there are delete requests, and a lot more. I mean, I don't remember everything, but there are a lot of methods. So for a particular route or a particular URL, so let's say your URL is /users. Now this endpoint /users can have a get variant, can have a post, can have a put, patch, delete, and so on. So everyone is separate. /users is not unique. /users get, /users post, actually it's post /users, patch /users, delete /user. So everything is different. Now, as the name suggests, get is generally used to get some data. So when you want to get, let's say, the list of users, you will create the endpoint like get /users. When you want to create a new user, you generally use post. So post /users. When you want to delete a user, you would generally use delete /users. Obviously it will get some ID or something, but delete. Put and patch are used when you are updating something. So when you are updating a user, you would use put or patch. Honestly, the area is a little gray on what is post, what is put, what is patch, because let's say you have a social media website and on a post you have comments. So when you add a comment, it can either be treated as editing a post, or it can be treated as creating a new comment. So it can be post, put, patch. So this is up to you. There is no requirement. Again, like I said, in Express, you can do pretty much anything you want. It's just going with the good practices. So the get and delete are very clear when to use. Post, put, patch are a little gray area, so you can take the call as required. Cool. So for now, let's create a normal get route. So we will do app dot get open parenthesis name. So app.get, and now what endpoint we want, what should be the URL, and let's say we only want slash. So slash is the first parameter. The second parameter will be what exactly we want to do. So second parameter is actually a function which takes request and response. So this is the function. And now whenever you want to send something back to the client, because we are creating a server, it will have some client, we will do response dot send, let's say hello to Express tutorial by tichnas. Once we do this, now we need a way to make a get request to this URL, which is slash. Get request actually is pretty easy to make. Just open your browser. So in this case, Firefox. Go to the corresponding URL. In our case, localhost 8000. Press enter. So as you can see, it's saying cannot get slash. Any idea why this is the case? Because our server is also running. Server started on port 8000. Yeah, so now again there is a difference when you are developing the React app. Whenever you do any change in the file, it automatically restarts and the changes are reflected live. Whereas when you are building this server, the server is not automatically restarted. So irrespective of how many changes you do in the file, you have to restart it manually. So I will stop this by pressing Ctrl C. I will run it again. So node index.js, run again. Now go to browser. Now refresh the page. Hello to Express tutorial by tichnas. Cool. Now obviously you would be, if you are building a server, you would be doing a lot of file changes and it's kind of irritating to every time restart. And that's why, I mean, developers are lazy to do stuff, so they didn't want to restart everything, so they created a separate package for that. And let me stop this server again. Yeah, so they created a separate package called as nodemon, Nodemon. Yeah, so this package basically listens to any file changes, and whenever there is any change in your file, the server will automatically restart. And again, one thing which won't really matter, but it's a very good practice. Let's open the VS Code and I will show you. Yeah, so in package.json we have dependencies and it will be a list of things. In this case we have only Express so far. If you have worked on the front end React or something, you would see like a long list. So what are dependencies is, whenever you deploy your app, it can be front end app, it can be a backend app, whatever, all these will be installed. Okay, so now when I am talking about a new thing which is nodemon, it only listens to file changes and restart your server. Now when you deploy your app, you don't really want this, like, right? Because it's useless. You are not doing development when you are deploying it. This package nodemon is only used when you're developing things so that you can develop it easily. You don't want it when you're deploying your app, because it won't do any good. It will just increase the size of your app, which obviously you don't want. So what we will do is, we will do npm I -- save dev. So I is for install, -- save dev for that whatever you are installing is only for development purpose and it won't be installed when you finally deploy your app. Cool. So -- save dev and nodemon. Now run this. Cool. So it is installed. Let's see our package.json. So we have dependencies and we have dev dependencies. And nodemon is in dev dependency because we only need this when developing. We don't need it when finally we deploy our app. Cool. So now to use nodemon, we will create a script. So inside these scripts, you can create whatever you want. I don't need this test, so I will just delete it. I will create a script start, which will run node index.js, and I will create a script dev, which will run nodemon index.js. Cool. So when I am deploying, I will simply do npm start to keep my server running. I don't need to listen to any file changes. When I'm developing, I will run this script, which is dev, so that it listens to all the file changes and restart server, so that I don't have to manually do it again and again. So let's open our terminal, clear this stuff, and I will run npm run dev. Enter. Cool. You can see node1, server started on port 8000. Let's keep this terminal open for now for 1 second. And yeah, hello, let's say again. Just notice the terminal. Okay, so I press Ctrl S to save, and did you see node1 restarted you this node1 and server started on port 8000. So everything is basically running. It's basically just restart automatically. You don't have to manually restart. Cool. So let the node1 run. We can focus on our app now. We don't have to worry about the restart. So we created a route. Let's check. Hello again to Express tutorial by tichnas. Cool. Now, for now, I have written it like this, but in general, what I will do is, and what many people do is, req is for request, res is for response, and we will use an arrow function. So this is how I will be writing all my routes, all my endpoints. Just wanted to clarify that these two things are same. We just change the name of the request and response variable, and we change the function to an arrow function. Cool. Let's delete it. And yeah, we also need to do res.send, not response.send. Now it was a GET request, which was very simple because you can simply open your browser and it will by default do a GET request. Now let's say you want to create a POST request. So you will do app.post / again req, res, arrow function, and res.send. This is a POST request. Now you cannot do POST request through browser. Cool. So when you open a web page, it by default is treated as a GET request. It's not possible to do GET POST request. So again, there is a very famous tool called as Postman. You can search it, Postman. Whenever you are developing a server, I will highly recommend you to install it. It is very easy to use it to develop your APIs because it kind of gives you a complete interface for testing. So you can do all types of request, GET request, post, delete, whatever, and it just makes the development more smoother. Cool. So this is the website postman.com. Just install it on whatever system you have, like Windows, Mac, Linux. I have already installed it, so I will just open the app. So you will see an interface something like this. This is the name of the request, untitled request, because you can save it actually. This is the request method. So get, post, put, patch, delete, copy, head, options, link, unlink, purge. I don't know how many, but essentially the top 5 are most used, and get, post, and delete are like the most frequent. Okay, so this is the request variable. By the way, just a disclaimer here. You probably can use Postman on web browser only without installing. But since your server is running locally, that is on localhost, if you are using Postman on a web browser, then it will not work properly. From the web browser Postman, you can make requests to whatever is already deployed, whatever is already there online. Since it's a local development, you need to install Postman locally to test stuff. Cool. So let's go back to the browser. Let me just copy this, paste it here. This is a GET request, send it. Hello again to Express tutorial by tichnas. Just change it to post, send. So this is a post request. Cool. Now in general, when you are building a server, when you are creating an API, different endpoints, you will probably, obviously will connect it to some client, which will be the front end. And in 99% of the cases, your front end and back end communicate in a specific format, which is known as JSON. So JSON is nothing but JavaScript object notation. Nothing complex, just that it's in the form of JavaScript object. So you write something like JavaScript objects are like name, Sanchit, nickname, tichnas. So this is your JavaScript object, and just to convert it into JSON, Your keys also should be enclosed in double quotes. So like this. This is your JSON. That's all. And like JavaScript allows you to have single quotes, but in JSON you must use double quotes. So this is a valid JSON here. Okay, so nothing complex, just that this is the standard format when backend and frontend are communicating. In general, they don't just send a string like this. Okay, so what we need to do is, instead of this string, we will do a JSON with name Sanchit and nickname tichnas. Sales. By the way, if you notice, I have not put double quotes here because right now I'm just writing it in JavaScript. It will get sent as a JSON object, but right now I'm writing JavaScript only. So if you go to Postman, if you send the post request, now this is JSON, and that's why you are seeing the double quotes. So in double quotes you have name, in double quotes you have Sanchit, in double quotes you have nickname, in double quotes you have tichnas. So this is a JSON, and also you can see here JSON. Cool. So right now when you are sending, it's JavaScript, but it automatically gets converted to JSON when you send. JSON is the standard way how servers and clients communicate. Now since we are working on post request, like I said, in general, post request is when you want to add some data to the database. So you would need some way to supply that data. So when you are making this request, we are just pressing send. We need a way to tell the server that we want to add these details to our database. Okay, so for that, we actually let's console.log req once. Console.log req and req. It will be a very big object, but let's just do it. Send. Open the terminal. Okay. Like I said, very big object. It's super big. Cool. So what I want you to focus on actually, most of these things are useless for you. This params thing, just remember this, I will tell you what this is. The params is one of the things, and second is okay, let's actually just print what we want. So req.params, params is one of the things, and req.body. Let's just print these two things. Make a post request, open the terminal. So params is an empty object and body is undefined. Now what is params? So let's say you want to let's assume for now that this is not a push request, this is a get request, and you want to get the details of a user. So you would need to somehow give the ID of the user. Okay, so let's do one thing. In this get request, it will be /users/ now we will give the ID in the URL itself. So we'll do :ID, and now let's print console.log req.params. By the way, I have created the route as this. You can create it like hello, hello/ID, or maybe only ID. So something like this. Everything works, but again, it's a good practice. So if you have a route for getting users, make it something like this /users/ID, so that whoever is seeing your routes, he gets some idea of what the route is doing. Okay, so this is your route. Let's open Postman, make a get request to /users and /ID. ID can be anything. Let's say 1, 2, 3. Send. Obviously we are returning this only, but let's open the terminal. So ID 1, 2, 3. So this is the object in which we get the params. And again, let's say you have to get, so again you are creating, let's say, a social media website for a particular user. You have to get the details of a particular post. So you will do something like /users/ID /post/post ID. Again, you can name it whatever you want. It's just a good practice to name it in a good way. So if you have user, you have user ID. You have post, you have post ID. Now let's again open the Postman /user/post/p54. Again, ID can be anything, right? just make send. Open the terminal. ID is this, post ID. It's just a JavaScript object. So you can get whatever variable you want. Okay. So this is basically the name of the variable. ID and post ID. So ID and post ID. So this is one way of getting the details whenever someone is making the request. So whenever someone is making the request, it's given that I want this ID of the user, I want this ID of the post, and you encode this in the URL itself. But there's a huge limitation to this. You would not want to send all the data. So in this case, in post also you can have different parameters. So you can have something like users slash username, name, password, name, and so on. You can have all the parameters you want and things will work. But it doesn't look good, right? I mean, there can be 10 different attributes of a user and it's not really good to put everything in the URL. So what is the other way is, for now let's simply delete this, is to pass a body. And how to pass a body is, at least from the Postman, by the way, in this tutorial I won't be connecting the backend to the front end. I will probably make another video to connect the React app we built in the React tutorial with the Express server we will build in this tutorial. In this tutorial we will be doing everything with Postman only. Okay. Yeah, so actually let's keep it here only. Copy this, open the new tab, paste it here, and change this to this, make it a post request. Now here you can see body. Go on the body, go on raw, change it to JSON. Pull raw and then JSON. Now we will write a JSON here, and like I said, it will start with curly braces. Every key you give must be in double quotes. So I will give name, Sanchit, nickname, tichnas, and press send. Now open the terminal, and if you see, it still gives us undefined. So we printed the request.params and request.body, but it still gave us undefined. And the reason for this is Express does not know how to handle JSON data. Cool. This is weird because the standard way of passing data is JSON, but Express by default does not know how to handle JSON data. So whatever data you send, if it's JSON in body, you won't be able to get it. Okay, so what we need to do is basically, I will tell you what, I won't explain right now what we are doing, but just now app.use express.json. What exactly is app.use, I will tell in some time, but for now, I mean, this much should be readable. So we are just telling the app to use JSON things. I hope you understand this. So once you save it, now open the Postman, now send the exact same request. Open the terminal, and now you see params is empty because we didn't have any params, but the body now contains name, nickname, and so on. Okay, and like I said, you can have any params you want, and there might be cases when, let's say, you are building a social media website, you want to create a post by this particular user. So you can have something like app.post. Let me copy this. So app.post /post /user ID. You can have something like this. You can create as many endpoints as you want, and this app.get/ is different than app.post. So the uniqueness is defined by the combination of the method as well as the URL. Okay, so just delete this. Yeah. So this is our new URL /post /user ID, and let's open our Postman. Copy this, open a new tab, paste it here, do post /user/123, and in the body we will do raw, we will do JSON, and we will do, let's say, title my post, and press send. Open the terminal. If you see, we have got the params as well as the body. Okay, so there is not really a constraint as you can only use params or you can only use body. You can use both. You are free to use both. So now let's do one thing. Let's create a. Okay, we have two post routes here slash post user ID slash user. By the way, gonna delete this JSON thing. If you have any doubts, just comment those. I will try my best to clear those, and also let me know how you find these videos, what I can improve, what else you want me to make. Just comment in the video and I will obviously read them. Cool. So let's say we have, let me just copy it, app.get and slash, and this will send this is slash route. Now I will do app.get slash users. This is slash users route, and things should ideally work. Let's see. So app, let me just copy it again, open a new tab, just make a get here. This is slash route, and if you do slash users, this is slash user route. Cool. But now let's bring a little twist. So let's say it's slash user ID, and let's keep the REH send as it is. Now you open the postman. Now you send. This is the slash route. You noticed what happened? So we have these users here, but this is still the slash route. Why? Because there is no way your Express can know that your user ID is not users. So basically it treated this user string as this user ID. So if you do console.log here, console.log req.params, open postman, send the request again, open the terminal, this user ID is users. So there is no way, I mean, it does not know whether you are actually trying to call the users route or this is your user ID itself. And it only depends on what is the sequence of your routes. So if you have app.get this thing from here, you put it here. Save this, postman, send. This is slash users route. So in case there is any conflict, it will by default take whatever is on the top. So in this case, these two routes have conflict. So by default, it will assume that this is what it needs to take. Okay, cool. And that's why it's kind of, like I said, suggested to create your routes URL meaningful. So if you are trying to get a user, make it slash user slash user ID. This is just a good practice. Again, you can do things the way you want. Okay, so now, like I said, it kind of gives you bare basic, and how you can exploit it is basically you do app.post, you do a single this req.res. Now let's say, I mean, you can build your whole application, whatever you're trying to build, with this one single route. You don't need all different routes. How? You send everything in request body. So you do if, sorry, not here. So const task equal to request.body.task. If task equal to add user, then add user. Else if task equal to delete user, then delete user. I mean, there is no way that this is not gonna work, and things will work. You have a route and it's a valid route technically, but it's just that you sent everything in the request body and kept the one route as the master route of everything. This route will control whole application, and obviously your code will be way messy. Things will not be readable. It is very difficult to develop on this, but like I said, you can develop things. So the main focus is not on how you can develop stuff, because as far as functionality is concerned, you can have your functionality with whatever code you write. It's more about how you structure your routes, how you design the URLs, what are the design decisions you take. It's more about that things. Cool. So now let's say we go back to our this thing, and let's say we want our post ID to be a number which is greater than 0. So we will do if post ID, sorry, const. First of all, I need to take post ID out of the params. So if post ID is greater than 0, then this, else let's just say invalid post ID. Cool. So if post ID is greater than 0, then we will send this. If post ID is less than 0 or 0, we will send this. By the way, we are assuming for now that post ID is number. You should ideally handle those cases as well. So go to Postman. This is this route slash, no, this is okay, let's do one thing. Users slash u123 slash post slash 123. Send it. Wait, not found. Wait, what is the URL? Users. Okay, my bad. This is a get request. Oh yeah. Let's do u123. Let's do 54 because we are assuming this is an integer. Send. Hello again to Express.js by tichnas. Make it 0. Send. Invalid post ID. But see here, 200 okay. The standard response for successful HTTP request. Okay, so whenever you give a response, you actually give a response, which in this case is an invalid post ID. But along with the response, you always give a status code as well. In this case, the status code is 200, which means okay. Again, it's not required. You can make your front end handle stuff, but it's a good practice to make sure your status codes are well defined. So you can search for what all status codes are there. HTTP status codes. So yeah. Okay, big documentation. You don't need a lot of them. Basically 200 okay is famous. You can ignore all these. Redirection you can ignore, you won't need a lot of them. 400 bad request and 401 unauthorized. These three are probably the most common. So 200 okay, 400 bad request, 401 unauthorized. So in this case, since our post ID is invalid, we want to say that this is a bad request. You can read the description of what is a bad request. So we want to send the status code 400 instead of 200, which is sent by default. So what we will do is, when we are doing res.send, before that we will do res.status.send. In status we will do 400. Save it. Go to Postman. Do send again. 400 bad request. The request cannot be fulfilled due to bad is next because you gave 0. If you give 1, send it again. It will give 200 okay. So 200 is by default if you do not satisfy. And if you specify, you can give anything you want. I mean, it's completely possible to give, let's say, 401 unauthorized. Send. Sorry, it should be 0 actually. Yeah. So now we are getting 401 unauthorized. It's completely up to you what status code you want. But again, you should follow what is the standard. So 400 bad request. Okay, cool. So we have seen how to build basic routes with get method, post method. You can also use delete method. Things will be same in that case. We have seen how to send JSON data. We have seen how to receive JSON data in form of params or in the form of request body. And we have seen how to set the status. Now, one thing is, let's say you do not do else here and we do console.log invalid post ID. Cool. Go to Postman, give it a valid post ID, let's say 1, send. So it gave us hello again to Express tutorial by tichnas, which means that this line will learn. But if you open your console, yeah. So first of all, it printed invalid post ID and also error cannot set headers after they send to the client. So basically what happens is this res.send sends the response to the client, but if you do not stop here, whatever is written below that, everything will run. So you do console.log and you try to again send it. So that's why we are getting this error that whatever you're trying to send is already sent to the client, so you cannot send it again. And it also prints invalid post ID. Now, it might not make very much sense right now that how will this be an issue. But let's say you are doing something like, instead of get, it's a post request, and you do so if post ID is invalid, then send message invalid ID. Otherwise, create a user post in database. So in this case, this otherwise is very important. So either you do else, if else, or you do return in the if. So if it's invalid, send the message and do return right there. If you stop there, then even though the client will get the message that it's an invalid ID, the post will still be created in the database, or at least your code will try to create it in the database and will get an error. We will see it when we do actual connection with MongoDB, but just warning you right now. Cool. So let's delete this. So we have created a lot of routes, and right now I want to suggest you one thing. Whatever route you are creating, so app dot, let me just select this app dot post. Yeah, whatever route you are creating, always try to make it /API /something. And why is this the case? So let's say you have a website, facebook.com. Now this website has both a front end and a back end. Okay, so just hypothetically assume that there is an API for getting users, and that is /users, which is a GET request. Now your website or your web app needs a way to tell whether it's your front end or it's your back end. So by default, if you open facebook.com, it's treated as a GET request only, right? So when you open facebook.com /user, it does not know that this is a web actual client page. So you can have facebook.com /games. Now, how will the web app know that it's a web page it wants to show, or it should be a server call? It's kind of difficult to grasp the concept, but I hope you're getting it what I'm trying to say, because your single domain, which in this case is facebook.com, is serving two things. It's serving the front end, which is the client, and it's also serving the back end, which is your server. It needs a way to decide that, okay, this request is coming to me. Now, should I give it to the front end to handle, or should I give it the back end to handle? So that's why, in general, you will see at many places, whatever routes you create, it starts with /API. So now it's very clear that if the request I'm getting starts with the /API, I will tell the backend to handle it. If it does not start with /API, then I will tell the front end to handle it. So that's how you separate it. There are other ways to separate it, but this is the easiest and probably the standard most common way. Okay, so whatever APIs you create, do it /API /this /API that, whatever. And now, okay, let's see how much we have written. So we have written 47 lines of code so far with some comments, empty lines. But hopefully you are getting the idea that how much big this file can be when you are creating the routes, because there can be hundreds, 200, thousands of routes, and you cannot put them everything in a single file. Things will become super difficult to develop, super difficult to read. Even your text file will become of a few MBs. So this is not really recommended to create all your routes in a single file. So again, what's the best way to do it? A good way to do it is create a new folder, have it at routes, and have separate file for each separate context. So if you are building a social media website, you can have a separate context for users. You can have a separate context for post. You can have a separate context for, maybe let's say you have games. So you can have separate context for that. You can have a separate context for authentication purposes. Again, it's up to you to decide what exactly. So you can have comments as a separate context, or you can include the comments in the post context itself. It's again depends on how much modular you want, and according to that you can create separate routes for that. So for now, let's create a routes and user.js. Cool. So we have created this file. Let me open this file side by side to our main index.file. So how we initialize our app? Import Express. So import Express here also. Import Express from Express. By the way, again, if you are not using the type module in package.json, you can use the require syntax also. Then we do const app equal to Express. When you are creating a router, by the way, like I said, your app is the whole thing, your whole app. And now to make things modular, you divide the app into separate components, and each component is called as a router. So multiple routers when combined will create your whole app. Cool. Now coming on to the file. So just like we did there, const app equal to express, we will do const router equal to express dot router. We don't need to do this express.json thing again because we added this to the whole app. Now since the whole app knows how to handle JSON, your router knows how to handle JSON. Now we are doing app.get. This is this. So in this case you will do router.get slash whatever. Let's keep slash only, and req res dot send I am in a router, and you want to export this. So you export this router so that your app can import it. And again, if you use modules, you can export it like this. So export default router. If you haven't put the type module, you will have to do something like module dot exports equal to router. Just letting you know if you haven't done it. Now inside our app, we import it. So import user router from dot slash routes slash users. Now we will see the use thing. So let's actually put this constant port down just here. So let's move our user route together. So let's delete this. We don't need this route. So we have a get slash API slash users. We have a post slash API slash users. We have a get slash API slash user ID post ID, and then we have API post user ID. So I'm going to treat all these three routes we have created, or endpoints or whatever, as a single entity. So I will put them in one router, and I will treat this as a separate router because I am considering this as a post route and the above three as user routes. So what I will do is simply do app.use slash API slash users and user router. That's all. And cut all of these. So we remove these routes from here and we post it here. We do not need this now. By the way, don't forget to change the app to router. And once you do that, if you see, we have set app to use. I mean, it should be obvious like what we are doing here. So basically we are telling the app to use user router for every request that is coming to slash API slash user. This is basically the prefix of the whole URL. So all the URLs that start with slash API slash users will be sent to user router to handle. And since user router already knows that it will only get the request we are sending to slash API slash user, you do not need to put it again and again. So instead of all this, you just delete this. So it will just become this. So router.get slash router.post slash router.get slash ID post ID, and it is assumed that this will be there. Slash API slash users will be there. Cool. Let's just try it. So save it. Open Postman. Let's run this same route again. Okay, we cannot get slash users. Okay, we change it to slash API slash user. Send. Yeah, so things seem to be working. So just like we created this users router, let's close this file. Create another router which will be post.js. Import express from express const router equal to express.router and go to index, cut this much here, go here, paste it, change app to router and remove this slash API slash post because that will be assumed. And now to export default router. Yep. Go to index, just like we did user router import, we will do post router import from this file, and just like we did use this slash API slash post and post router. Now this made our file a little bit more cleaner, looks good. The code is now much more modular. You have a separate file for user related routes, you have a separate file for post related routes. Cool. Now if you remember, we were building a to-do app in the front-end tutorial, in the React tutorial I made. So just to make this server also aligned with that tutorial, I will create a to-do route as well. I mean, we will later in some future video maybe connect this server to that frontend, so we will need these routes. So we will do import express from express. We will do const router equal to express.router. We will do router.get slash req.re, res. It will simply send list of to-dos. And if you again remember from the React tutorial, we had a separate page for details of specific to-do. So slash to-do id list of to-do id, not to-do id direct. So const to-do id equal to request.params and here to-do id. And now export default router. Once we have done this, we can go to our index, import to-do router from /route/to-do. Again app.use /api /to-do and to-do router. I've just added text here. We will connect a database which will be MongoDB, but just test it now. /api /to-do send connection refuge. Okay, let's open the terminal. What happened? Cannot find module. This is users. Wait, what did I do? Okay, this is weird. I guess what I can do is it's giving error in user. Let's try adding .js. Probably this is causing the issue. Save it. Oh yeah, it worked. Server started on port 8000. Cool. Let's open Postman. Now let's do get this list of to-dos, and if we get this, then list of to-do 1 2 3, not list of to-do, it's actually details of to-do. And other than that, we have a post which is just slash. We will take a few things like title maybe. I mean, we will figure this stuff out later, but anyways, just add a new to-do. So this is the 3 routes which I will be implementing by connecting it to a real database, which is MongoDB. So now that you have an idea of how to use Express to a basic level, let's get started with MongoDB. So go to the MongoDB website. So you can just search on MongoDB. Let me open it in incognito to show you how it looks like. MongoDB. You open MongoDB. You just sign in with Google, GitHub, new email address, whatever. Since I have already signed it, I will just show you. So the UI will look something like this. Create a new project. In your new project, name your project, whatever you want. I will put it temp. Do next. Add members and permission. If you want multiple members, you can do it. Otherwise, just do create project. Now I mean it's obviously showing a warning. Let me zoom it a little bit. So current IP address not added. You will not be able to connect to databases from this address. So basically what happens is your server actually runs on a single or maybe a few limited set of computers. I mean those computers itself are called servers. So I mean to say your backend runs on a limited set of computers which are known as server. And for security reasons, you build your database and tell it to accept requests only from these few computers, so that every request goes from your known computer only and there is no hacker which directly tries to interact with the database. So in this case, like it's suggesting, we will just add current IP address. So current IP address added, and we can obviously modify this. If you do not add this IP address, then you won't be able to connect to the database, because for security reasons, database won't allow your computer server to connect to the database and do any changes. Once you have added this, now do build a database. You can choose anything. For now, I will go with shared because that's free. If you have money, you can create whatever you want. So go with the free one. Cloud provider and region. You can choose any. Does not matter much. I mean, obviously, I am doing this just for tutorial purpose. If it's your personal project or something, it won't really matter what you use. One thing I would suggest is try to get an area which is near you. So since I live in India, Mumbai is the closest I can get. If I choose some weird area in Europe or North America, the connection time will be like considerable. So if I choose Mumbai, I will be able to connect in, let's say, 1 second. If I choose, let's say, Europe, it will take, let's say, 3, 4 or 5 seconds. So the connection time is considerable. So try to get an area which is closer to you. So I will choose Mumbai. Cluster type, additional settings, cluster name, whatever. Create cluster. Okay. So how would you like to authenticate? Username and password, your first user, and have permission to write and read any data. So you can create any username you want. I will go with admin, and password is purely admin by default. Yeah. So admin username, admin is password. If you are working on a real project, obviously you will want to make it much more secure. But for tutorial, it's fine. Success. Cool. So setup is done. Just do finish and close. Yeah. Go to databases. Now you will see this cluster here. In my case, I didn't change the name of the cluster. That's why I'm seeing cluster 0. If you change the name, you will see that name here. Now we want to connect to this cluster. So we will do connect. By the way, few things I would like you to know is basically MongoDB is a database, but it offers a service known as Atlas. So it's nothing but Atlas. It's nothing but just online host your DB. So right now when we created this cluster, created this database, we are using their MongoDB Atlas, which is hosting your database online with their servers. You can also set up MongoDB locally if you want. So all your database will stay on your local desktop or computer or whatever, just for your personal project or whatever. So in that case, you won't be using Atlas. It's up to you if you want to go with the online one. It's comparatively much easier to get started with the online one because you don't need to worry about setup and everything. But if you want, you can set up MongoDB on your laptop as well. Just search for it, how to do that. And secondly, when I'm creating this video, only a few months back, it was made possible to connect to MongoDB directly. So before that, it was not possible for our Express server to connect to MongoDB directly and make any changes. And we used a package called as Mongoose. So since it has been only a few months, and honestly there are not many resources online to directly connect to MongoDB because it hasn't been really tested and worked on by a lot of developers. In this tutorial also, I will be using Mongoose only. Since you, irrespective of what problem you face, you can just search it on Google and you will somehow find something at least, because it's been there for many years now. So I will suggest you to go with Mongoose only. Even if you are watching this video, let's say 1 year later, still I guess Mongoose will be a much better choice. But again, it's completely up to you. So yeah, let's go to our MongoDB again. Choose a connection method. So we will do connect your application. Now we are using Node.js. Choose version, whatever your version is, and just copy this string here. Copy. Cool. Now I want to connect to database, and I can very well write the code here. But again, it's much better to structure your things in a modular way. You should have separate files, separate folder. So that's why I will create a separate folder known as utils. And inside this utils, I will have a new file which is connectdb.js. Now, since we are connecting to a MongoDB database, and like I just said, like 1 minute before something, that we need a package called as Mongoose to do anything with MongoDB. We won't directly interact with MongoDB. So let's go to our terminal, close this for now, and I will install Mongoose. And for now, another package which is .env. I will tell you the use of this .env, but let's just install it for now. So install. Cool. So the packages are installed. Now let's go to the connectdb. We will again import Mongoose from Mongoose. Yeah. And now export default function connectdb equal to mongoose.connect, and we will pass the string. So it's asking for URI. URI is nothing but the string we just copied. And by the way, don't forget to change this password thing here. This password will contain your user password. And if you remember, we created a user with username as admin and password as admin. So we'll do admin here. By the way, this is not an arrow function. Yeah. So what happens is, if you hover over it, you will see that it returns a promise. Now again, this is asynchronous JavaScript. If you want me to make a detailed video on how asynchronous JavaScript works, what are the things you should consider, then let me know in the comments. For now, just know that in general, whatever you do, so let's say you do console.log here, console.log 1, you do const a equal to 1 plus 2, and now let's say you do this console.2. Now this statement will run first, then this statement will run first, then this statement will run. So this is synchronous. So statements are basically running one by one. What is asynchronous is, when you do this call, it directly does not return you anything, but it returns you a promise. It returns you a promise to give you something in future. Now that something can be the data you are expecting, or it can also give you an error. Okay. So what we will do is, basically, since this is a promise, we need to wait for it to complete. That's why we will do await. And if you hover over await, you will see await expressions are only allowed within async functions. So let's mark this function as async. So export default async function. Again, things you might not be understanding in detail, because I have not taught asynchronous JavaScript, but just in a nutshell, whatever is returning promise, if you need to wait for that promise, do await, and await can only happen inside async functions. That's how much you should know right now, just to go through this tutorial. And so, like I said, it can either give you the expected thing, or it can also result in an error. So you will do try whatever and catch error. So you will do console.error or whatever, however you want to handle. So error in connecting DB. It's completely up to you how you want to handle the error. Let's save this for now. Okay, and since at this point, we know that the MongoDB connection was successful, because we have waited for this to finish, and either it finished with success, in which case we will be here, or if it gave an error, then we will go to the catch statement. We won't go to this point. So at this point, we know that connected to database. This is for sure. Now let's go to our index.js and let's do it here. So we will do connect db. It will auto import it. Yeah. Let's start the server. npm run dev. Connected to db. It's showing some warning. It's very easy to disable them or whatever. Just read it and you will know what you need to do. For now, let's ignore it, and it's saying server started on port 8000 and connected to db. And if you notice, it was pretty instant because I am sitting right now in Hyderabad in India and I chose Mumbai as a server. If you choose some other country in Europe or something, it might take a few seconds to connect to db. Okay, so now that we are connected to database, let's go to yeah. If you see this connect thing, it takes a URI, and this URI basically contains your username as well as the password. And when you are using these things in actual development environment, that means you are probably using some version control like Git and pushing it onto a remote repository on GitHub or something, then you would not want to push all these things, because if your users or even developers get access to production level username and password, your product can suffer from various hacks or something. So you would not want to do that. So what ideal approach is, basically you kind of put these things as variables. So for development you will have separate variables, and while deploying onto production you will give the variables on that server directly. So while deploying you will tell your code that these variables values will be this, and in development your code will be that these values are this. Okay, that was a kind of weird explanation, but let me explain by the code. Okay, so in general, your secret variables, in this case your whole URI, are a part of process environment. So it's like console.log process.env dot whatever your variable name is. So in your environment variable, you add the value of the secret variable. So what are environment variables? So if you just do let's say echo $pwd, this will print something. If you do echo $user, it will print tichnas. So this user here is an environment variable. Now if you do, let's say, echo $name, by the way, these are uppercase because in general it's suggested to put all your constants as uppercase variable. Again, not something you have to do, but something you should do. So if you do echo $name, it won't print anything because this environment variable does not exist. To make an environment variable, you do export name equal to, let's say, Sanchit. Now if you do echo $name, it will come. So this name thing here is an environment variable. So when you are actually deploying to production, you will have environment, let's say Mongo URI. So you have this environment variable set there, and you would want your code to take the value from your environment variable. And how you will take this is process.env.mongo URI, where this Mongo URI is the variable name. This process.env is saying that take this from environment variables. Okay, that is perfect for production. But now when you are doing development, there is no environment variable. I mean, you can set environment variable here and things will probably work. So if you do console.log process.env.user and just do user here, go to this. So user tichnas. So environment variables are there because I showed you right now, right? So user is there, but you cannot expect anyone to, like, first of all create these manually, and secondly someone might be working on 10 different products. Mongo URI will be different in everything, and basically you don't want any details outside of this project. So to put it in environment variables, you have to literally change your system settings, which you do not want. And for that, we have installed a package which was .env. It's basically used to have a file as an environment variable. So how we use it is, let's go to ConnectDB only. So first of all, import env from .env. Then we will do env.config. And now we can freely use process.env.mongoURI, and where it will be defined is from the root level of a project, which means here, right where your index.js is, we will create a new file which is .env. By the way, dot is represented as hidden file. So your environment file is hidden, and if you are using some version control, then you should also include this in your ignore file. So in case you are using Git, you must include .env in your Git ignore. Now you will do Mongo URI equal to Mongo URI. We will add the actual value, just confirming. So console.log Mongo URI, and let's see the terminal. So Mongo URI is Mongo URI and user tichnas. So obviously, whatever environment variables are there on your system level, they will be still accessible. But we have defined some new environment variables only for the project scope. So let's delete this whole string from here and put it here. So Mongo URI equal to this. While defining environment variables, you do not need to put quotes here, okay? And this will change to mongoose.connect process.env.mongoURI. Cool. Let's see the terminal. Server started, connected to DB. We do not need this console.log statement run. Delete this. And yeah, so connection to DB is done. Now, MongoDB is a NoSQL database, which means that it's not required for you to have a fixed schema, or basically saying a fixed blueprint of whatever you are trying to make. So it does not require that you make a particular schema for a user. That user will contain name, user will contain age, user will contain nickname, and so on. You can do anything you want. You can add attributes as and when you want. So this is known as NoSQL database, and MongoDB is one of the NoSQL databases. On the other hand, you have SQL databases which require you to give a particular fixed schema. So you have tables, and tables have fixed columns. You cannot randomly create different columns for each user, okay? Every user will have same set of columns. In case of NoSQL or MongoDB, one user can have name, might not have a nickname, might not have even the field of nickname. I'm not saying nickname with an empty string or null. It will not even have the field of nickname. Another user might have nickname also, might have age and whatever. So things can be completely different. And that's why this is NoSQL, that is SQL. SQL is rigid on the terms of schema. NoSQL is not rigid. But when we are using Mongoose, it kind of makes you to define the schema at one place, because essentially if you do not define schema, things kind of go out of hands and not controllable. Having a particular schema helps in development because you know what you can expect. There are ways to like have separate schema. So maybe you have two types of users, so you can have separate schema for them, but you should define it somewhere. That's all Mongoose require. So we will create a folder, models. Inside this model, I will create a new file, user.js. Inside this file, I will obviously import Mongoose. And now I will do const user schema equal to an object. Sorry, not directly an object. Actually, it will be new mongoose.schema, and then it will take an object. Yeah. So now let's say your user contains a name, which will be a string. So name string. It will also contain a nickname, which will be string. But let's say we want the name to be required. So we'll do name type string and required true, and remove this from here. Okay, so name type is string, required is true, nickname is only string, so you don't need to give it an object like this. Okay, and you can also have default values, so you can add default here, blah blah something, whatever. and other things you can obviously look for. So this much is fine. One thing I would like you to explore is how to link other models. So if you have a little bit idea about databases, you basically have a foreign key. So let's say a user has a list of to-dos. So in every to-do, you will have a foreign key pointing to the user. Okay, so a user can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to-dos. Each to-do will have a pointer to the user. So it knows that this to-do is for this user. So when you are creating a to-do schema, you will put the user ID there. So just like Google how to put that. Okay, now once you have defined the user schema, what I will do is now I will actually create a model of this. So const user equal to mongoose dot model name. I will give it right in a second. User schema. Now this name, whatever name you give here, will be reflected onto the MongoDB database, and this name can be anything. So just for fun, you can have it like hey, and let's do export default and user. We obviously need to connect this somehow, because by default hey won't be there. We need to create a user. So let's go to our users router, and we have a post request here. So what we will do is, first of all, take name and nickname out from the body. We won't be hardcoded. We will take it from the body. Once we take it, we will create a new user, const user equal to import the user model we created. So note, this is what we imported. Okay. Now it will take an object name, nickname. By the way, again, this is one of the ways to write it, but assuming the key name and the variable name are same, you can write it in short form like this also. This is a JavaScript thing, not necessarily Express.js thing. So I will be using this directly. Once you create a new user, to actually save it to database, you have to call user.save. By the way, this will be new user. Yeah, user.save. And if you hover over save, yeah, so if you see, it also returns a promise. So it also basically, in a general sense, you can see whatever is taking time, it's a high chance that it will be a promise. So connecting to a database is a time consuming process, so it will be asynchronous. Saving something onto database is again a time consuming process, so it will probably be asynchronous. This is general thing, but if you can learn about promises, that will be great. So just hover over it, and if it's a promise, it's something that will be done in future. So before doing anything, I want to wait for it. So I will do await. And again, since we are doing await, we need the function to be async. So we'll do async. And since we are doing await, we need to do try catch. So try and catch. Error. Yeah. So in case there is any error in saving the user, then this catch will come. We will do console.error, error and error, and we will send res.send. So first of all, let's set a status. So the status I will be setting is 500. 500 is for internal server error. In case there is some issue, so let's say your name is empty, and remember we added name as required. So in case the name is empty, this will give error, but that's not really a server error. That's a bad request. So what you can do is, here only check if things are valid, otherwise send bad request. And instead of manually putting if condition and checking, I would recommend you to look into a library called as Express Validator. Again, I won't be teaching you everything. It's very important that you learn how to figure out stuff on your own. So I'm just like giving you the direction to explore. It's up to you if you really want to explore and learn, or just finish this thing off. Hopefully, if you are watching this video till now, you are in for learning, so you will explore this. Let me know in the comments if you actually learned something from this Express Validator. Cool. For now, I will assume that name will be valid, nickname will be valid. You should, however, look into this and make sure things are valid. Okay, so status. Now what I will be sending is a JSON object which will have a field errors, which will be an array, and the array will have an object with the key MSG, and it will contain server error. And am I crazy to have this format? Not really. So if you will look into how Express Validator works, you will kind of understand why I have used this format. Otherwise, it's completely okay what format you want to use. This will make things convenient if you are using it with Express Validator, because Express Validator also kind of gives the error in the same format. So that's why it will be better to have consistent ways of giving the error. Cool. Now, I guess things should work. First of all, let's open the browser. Close this. So cluster, browse collections. Yeah. So it's empty, right? Now, what was our out? Okay. So we have this. Okay. So post in the body, we will give raw, we will give JSON. Name will be Sanchit. Nickname will be tichnas. Post / users, name, nickname will be sent from request.body. And actually, while we are sending it, we won't send it like this. We will send the whole user. Cool. Send it. Okay, what happened? Error. Terminal. Okay, the same issue. We should actually do user.js. This probably won't be the case if you follow the required syntax. You will have to check it once. But yeah. Server started, connected to MongoDB. Now send the request. 404 not found. Okay, this is /API/users. Send. So first of all, it gave us 200 okay, name, nickname, and an ID. So every object you create in a database will have a primary key, which by default is _ID, and like other primary keys, it's unique. If you want, you can have a custom attribute as your primary key. So let's say the user have an email. So email might be unique. So you can tell the MongoDB, instead of having this extra field, treat my email as a primary key, and it will do that. Otherwise, it's okay if you have this ID field as well. So email will be unique. You can have the unique constraint in email. So when we were defining the model, like this, you have type this, require this. Here only you can add all other things, like it should be unique, it should be this, it should be that. So everything you can do, and you can also have an ID. It's like again design choice. Either you put email only as unique and treat it as a primary key, or put email as unique but have still the _ID, which is the default thing, as the primary key. Completely up to you. Does not matter much because it's still one field. You will probably have 10 different fields in user, so one field won't really matter much. Okay, now let's go to MongoDB. Refresh these collections. If you see, we have his and name Sanchit, nickname tichnas, and this ID is the same as that. I mean, if you want, you can compare, but it's same. And if you remember, this hey is what we gave here. So whatever we give here, it just adds an s to make it plural and adds it. And obviously, I put it here just to showcase you, but have something of sense here, like user. Save it. Go to here. Open Postman again. Send again. Open the MongoDB. Refresh. And you will have users here. Okay. Now, let's just do an experiment. Okay. While creating a user, where we are creating it. Yeah. While creating a user, we have name, we have nickname, let's say email, and we will do s@h.com. Let's just put a hard-coded email for now. And go back here. Open Postman, change. Okay, this is the response. Change name to Sanchit 2. Send. open MongoDB and refresh. Actually, if you don't even refresh, you see the response here. It does not contain the email. You can also see it in the MongoDB. It does not contain the email. But like I said, it's only the requirement of Mongoose that does not allow you to add any arbitrary field. But right now in this MongoDB, you can actually edit this. So you have an edit document here. You press it and you can have another field. So you do plus here, add field after this. You do email. The type you can change. Let's keep string only, and you have s@s.com and update. So even if you refresh now, you see the email is there. So MongoDB as such does not require you to have fixed schema. Mongoose, however, makes sure that you follow a fixed schema. And like I said, there are ways to have a single model, in this case user, to have two or more separate schemas. And for that, I would like you to read about discriminator key. So discriminator key is something that is used to have two separate schema for a single model. How to use it? That's something you would have to look. I won't teach you that. Okay, cool. Now we have learned how to create objects in our database, in this case user. Now we need to list. So how we will do this? Again, everything you do, you have to put it in try catch because there might be some error. So you need to handle those. Again, for now I am just assuming that everything will be server error. You should ideally check for things, and depending on whether it's unauthorized, bad request or whatever, you respond accordingly. Now how to get the list? Very simple actually. So you do const users equal to await user. This user is what we are importing. Dot find and just this. Since we are using await, we do async. And now res dot send users. Or actually you can also use res.json. Both of them are same thing. res.send or res.json. So users, let's see actually. Keep this as it is. Copy, paste, send. So we got a list of users. This one, and so on. Cool. Now let's actually create a user with some other nickname. So tichnas2 and Sanchit3. Send. Now get the list of users. Sanchit, tichnas, Sanchit2, tichnas, and Sanchit3, tichnas2. So now basically what find is used for, it takes any number of arguments you want to find. So if you do not give anything, it will give all the users. If let's say you want the users only those who have a nickname of tichnas, so you will give nickname tichnas. Save it, open the postman, send the request again, and if you see, you only get the two users which had the nickname tichnas. It does not return the tichnas2 user. And if you want, you can have any number of fields, so name, whatever, blah blah, anything. So it will do an AND off. So this should be true, this should be true, as well as this should be. So everything will be true, and only then it will return that object or document or whatever. Okay, so for now, let's keep it this much only. And do we have a user ID? Not really. So let's have a user ID as well. So copy this, paste it here, and if you remember, let's change it to ID, and we can take this ID from request.params. And now we will do console.log ID actually, or let's ignore this. Find. If you remember what was the ID, it's underscore ID is ID, and we do res.send users. Open postman, copy this ID, do slash and this, and send. So it gave us this. Now you as a developer know that there will be only one single user with this ID. But since you use this find, actually what happened is your server or your database had to look through all the records and check if is this document satisfied the condition. If yes, then take it, otherwise don't take it. Does this satisfy the condition? If yes, then take it. If no, then don't take it. Even if it finds the first user with this given ID, then also it will keep looking, because programs are dumb. It's up to the developer to optimize things. Okay. So instead of doing this, we have something called as find one. So when you do find one, it assumes that you know that whatever condition you are giving will only return one single document, in this case one single user. So it's kind of more efficient this way. Again, like I said many times, even if you do find, you will get a list, you just return the first element of that list. That will work, but that's not efficient. So if you do like same thing again, you will get, instead of array, you will get a single list, single object with this user. And by the way, you are also getting this email which we added directly onto the MongoDB, even though Mongoose does not allow us. Cool. And now let's go one step further. Now you have got to know about find, you know about find one. But in this case, you know that you are actually finding by the ID. And if you are finding by the ID, if you have read about databases, there are ways to optimize search. So if you have, like, let's say ID, you can have different indexes on ID which will give way fast result if you know that you are finding on ID. If you do find one, it does not know that you are finding on ID. So it's more efficient in find, but still not very efficient. So what you can do is const user equal to await user dot find by ID. It will simply take one parameter, which is ID. If you do this function call, this will be the most efficient. So given an ID, just give me that one user. So from ID, they probably have more optimized way to get the user according to a given ID. So if possible, then use find by ID. If it's not possible, see if you can use find one. If you really need a list, then obviously you don't have much option than to use find one. Cool. So yeah, now let's say you want to change the name of the user. So let's create another route that will be put. So put slash ID, and this is this. So I will get the ID from parameters and I will take the name from body. So it's kind of dependent on what you want. I generally prefer that from URL I won't add a lot of things. So ID is a single thing just to find that user, and for updating the details I can have name, nickname and so on, a lot of things. So I will take that from the body. I won't add everything inside the URL. So ID will be from URL, name will be from body. So what I will do is const user equal to this, user dot name equal to name, and just like when we created a new user, where is it? Yeah, just like we created a new user, then we had to do user dot save. After doing this, we again need to do await user dot save. Cool. So let's change things of this user only. Make it a put request, paste it here, and we need to send a body raw JSON send name, updated name. Just to let you know, this was the user, name is Sanchit2, nickname is tichnas, email this, ID this. We go here, we do send. So it gave us this thing, but let's confirm by making a get request send. So it gave us this. You can also confirm by going onto the MongoDB, but believe me, it changed the name actually. But again, there is an issue. What we did is, when we run this statement, our server goes to DB to tell that I need to find a user with this ID, and the DB then responds back to server that take this user. Now when we call this, then again the server goes to DB that take this and save, and the DB again that responds to server that okay, I have saved. This is 2 round calls, but there is a way to do it more efficiently. How? So you can do it like basically await user dot find by ID and update by ID and update. So what it will do is, first of all, it takes an ID, and secondly, it takes an object what all you want to update. So name you want to update. Again, since the key and the value variable name is same, name, I can simply write it like this. You can also put nickname, change nickname, whatever. Okay, so it will find it and change it. So it will be a single round call. Instead of 2 round calls, we now have a single round trip. So it is much more efficient. And similar to this, you actually have other functions like find. So user dot find one and update and update. So user dot find find one and remove. So if you have ID, again, if you have ID, then find by ID and update, find by ID and remove, and so on. If you do not have ID, then you can do find one and update and so on. And you might think that the use case is limited. So let's say there is an attribute called as age, and you want to increment age. So you want to do age as age plus 1. So you need to know what was the previous age. You cannot directly supply it here. So you cannot put age as age plus 1 because that's undefined. You don't know what was the previous age. So in this case, again, it will be much easier if you take the user, take it age and add that age and then do user.save. It's much easier to do that, but it's not efficient to do that. So again, I won't directly teach you. I would suggest you to Google like something like Mongoose find and update increment, something like this, and probably you will come to know about something like this $inc, and there are a lot more. So it's not like this find by ID or find one and update is very limited. It's actually very powerful. It's just you should spend time searching on internet how to make it more efficient, because like I said, you can complete whatever assignment you are doing, you can build whatever project you want to build and put it in your resume, and things will work. It's more about whether you are actually learning and writing good code or not. So spend time figuring out what is the best way possible. More or less pretty much everything you can do in a single call. In rare cases will need more than one call. Okay. So we have done find by ID and update. I don't need to teach you find one and remove. The name is obvious. Basically it will delete the user. Okay, what else is left? So I did create a to-do router, but I think you should be able to complete these routes now that you have some knowledge. So this is again kind of a homework for you to fill this thing. If I do create a next video, I will have these things filled. For now, I assume you can do that. So I guess it's more or less done. Express. One thing I want to cover is authentication flow. So for authentication purpose, there are many ways to do that, but the most common is using tokens, JWT tokens. And for that also we install a couple of libraries. So npm install bcrypt.js and JSON Web Token. Install these 2 libraries. Once this is installed, now let's create. So you can either create a separate route for login register. You can have register in users, and for login you can have separate because register is actually creating a new user, or you can have everything inside user. It's again completely up to you. What I'm gonna do is I will actually create a separate thing. So auth.js, and again here import express from express const router equal to express.router export default router. Now for login, actually I will have a post request. So because I want to send the username and password and I don't want to send it in URL, and I want to send it in body. And whenever you're sending body, there are ways to send it in get request, but a standard thing is in get request you do not send bodies. So since I want to send body, I will have it as post. So req res and login. So first of all, I will take the username and password from req.body. By the way, I now need a username and password field in the user model. So we will go to user model, username string, password string. Obviously you would want to have username as unique. For now I won't do that. You can obviously Google and figure out how to put unique. I just added username and password. Cool. Actually, let's do one thing before logging. Let's have a register only, so that we create a user and we will do it here only. So name, nickname, username, password, and I'm gonna delete the comments. Hopefully you will take care of that. What you can do is do const user equal to user dot find one, await user dot find one, and do username. So it will give you a user if it exists, otherwise it will give null or undefined or something. So now what you can do is, if user, then you will do res dot status 400. 400 means bad request. Username already exists. Cool. And like I said sometime back, if you just do res dot status, server will send this response to the client, but whatever you write later, it will still execute. So what we will do is return this. So basically it's just saying that send this to client and return. So we do not want to execute whatever we have written later. So at this point we know that username does not exist. So we will do user equal to, actually let's change this const to let, because we are changing the variable. User equal to new user name, nickname, username, name, nickname, username, and password. Okay, but now the thing is, you won't store password as it is in your database, because it's again a security threat. If someone gets access to your database, he or she can literally like see the text whatever you have written, and your password should be encrypted in some way. So for that we will use the library we installed, import bcrypt from bcrypt.js. Okay, so go to this point. Yeah, basically bcrypt is used to hash your password and encrypt it, but for hashing it needs another thing, like what to hash your password with, and that is known as salt, like const SALT, salt, and that will be created by bcrypt dot gen salt. So it's not get salt, it's gen salt, basically generate salt. And it actually, okay, number of rounds to use defaults to 10. So if you want more security, you want more rounds, so you can increase 10. If you want less security, you can decrease 10. For now I will use the default, which is the 10. Once you have the salt, you can hash the password. So user dot password, I am changing the password equal to await bcrypt dot hash, and it will take the, like it's suggesting as the string, and then the salt string will be the old user password and then salt. So that's how we hash or encrypt the password. And after this is done, then we will do await user.save. So save it now. Actually res.send user, and let's create it. So name this username, let's have tichnas only, password equal to admin, let's say. Now if you send it, okay, same error I guess. Let's see. Oh, we didn't even start it, my bad. Cool, sent. So if you see, name is fine, nickname is fine, username is fine, but see, this is the password. Okay, and there is no way you can figure out that this was okay. What happened? Yeah. Yeah, there was no way that you can figure out that this is the string admin. We kind of hash or encrypted it. And if you see actual MongoDB, yeah, uh, name, nickname, yeah. So password is basically this here. This is same as what we were getting on the Postman. So your password is hashed. So registration flow is this much only, not much. Only one thing that you need to hash the password. Now coming on to login flow, where was our login? Yeah, we actually need to do two things. First of all, check if password is correct. If it does not, the password is not correct, then obviously we will return. But if the password is correct, we need to generate a token. So what is a token? Basically, when you are logged in, our server will give you a string which is known as token, and you will send this string, which is the token, authorization token or bearer token or JWT token. I mean, all these are the names you can use for token. So whenever you make further request to the server, so let's say a user wants to create a post, so then your route won't take the user ID also. Otherwise, I can give your user ID and create post on your name, right? Your route will take the token because I will get the token only after I log in, and the token stores the data of who you are. The token stores your ID, your name, or whatever. I mean, it's up to you what all you want to store. In general, only ID is stored because from ID you can get everything. So once you log in, I will take your ID, I will do some magic on it, I will create a string, that string will be token. I will send that token to the client. The client is basically your website. In my case, what I will be doing is, it's a React app. Once your website has that token, whatever request you make now, in every request you will send a token, and from token your server will figure out who you are. Because if you just take user ID as a parameter, I can give any user ID literally. There is no security at all. So user ID is one thing which is taken from token only. So generate a token, yeah, these two things. So what you can do is either write everything here like just a normal function, or this is probably a new thing for you. You can attach different methods to user, not the user, the user model. Let's close this actually. To do post user model. So on user schema, you do user schema dot methods, whatever method name you want. So let's say check password, and I will do equal to function password, and it will be actually very simple. Just import bcrypt from bcrypt.js. Also import JWT. We will be using this from JSON web token. Yeah. So we will simply do return bcrypt dot compare password and this dot password. By the way, I have deliberately used this function keyword here. You cannot use arrow function here, because if you use arrow function, then this keyword will be something else. I mean, again, this is a JavaScript concept. There is a lot to teach, but everything can't be covered in a single video. So just believe me on this part, that you must use function if you are using this word, this keyword. Then you must use function. Otherwise, I prefer to use arrow functions, as you might have noticed. Okay. So we have a method for checking the password if it's valid or not. Let's say we have another method for generating the token. So user schema dot methods dot generate token equal to function, and this won't take any argument actually. So just do this, and let's do const token equal to jwt dot sign. Now let's see what all arguments are there. Payload, secret key, and then options. So payload is basically whatever you want to encode. So payload, like I said, in general only ID is enough. So my payload will be an object containing a user, and the ID will be this dot underscore ID, or maybe let's have it like this. Completely up to you. Or you can also directly have the ID. You do not need to have this user object. I mean, it's completely up to you. Whatever you want to encode, how much you want to encode, it's completely up to you. So we define the payload. Second is secret key. So again, token is something which is used to identify who you are. And if I can generate a token by your user ID, then I can basically log in through your site. User ID is not secure. So if I get your user ID, I should not be able to generate a valid token. So what is this new magic? Because our server is able to generate token using only your user ID. But I don't want anyone else to generate a token using only your user ID. So one thing which you will add here, the randomness thing, is basically the secret key. And once again, I will take the secret key from the environment variable const secret equal to process.env.secret key. And like the name says, it is secret, so you should not share it with anyone. If anyone gets the secret key as well as the user ID, the token can be generated. Okay, so user ID is public, the secret key is not. That's why anyone else is not able to generate the token. If both of these things get public, then I mean, you cannot do much. So secret key, and this is just a string. Depending on how much difficult you want your system to be hacked, you can, like, it's just like a password. So if you add symbols, numbers, uppercase, lowercase letter, it will be more secure. If you do not add a lot of things, if you just write hello, it will be less secure. But since it is a tutorial, I will go ahead with hello only. That is good enough. So we do this and we sign this. So payload, secret, and now options. So as a token, it gives an option to expire. So when the user logs in, you give it a token, but says that it's only valid for 24 hours. After that, you will need to log in again. Because again, this is kind of a security concern depending on how much secure you want your website. So some bank websites have a token expiring in, let's say, 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Some not very secure websites have it expiring it in 1 day or 1 month or something. So that even if your token is leaked, even if someone gets your token, it will expire after some time. So if today I give you my token, then you can do anything you want for a certain period of time. After that, that token itself will become invalid. And you will have to log in again. And for login, you have to know the username and password. So we will do expires in. Expires in will take the time. So I will just give it a big number. So let's say 3600. 3600 is 1 hour. I will say 10 hour, and this is 100 hour. 100 hour is decent enough. You can add and how many zeros you want. And now I will do return token. So we added a function for checking the password. We added a function for generate token. Now we can proceed with our login. So in login, we have username and password. So again, you must check if the username and password as a string itself are valid. And for that, you are highly recommended to at least check once Express validator. If you like it, you can use it. If you do not like it, it's up to you. But just check it once. Okay, so first of all, we want to get the user. So we will do const user equal to await. Sorry. Again, first of all, we will need to do it in try catch. res dot status 500 dot send an object errors an array message server error. uh, 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 why is it showing appreciated? Yes, what did we do here? I think this is some VS Code issue only. Catch error, sorry. Yeah, and you can also console log whatever. I am not gonna focus on minor things right now. So await user, you import it. Again, let's not forget to add JS. Await user dot find one username. If not user, then return res dot status 400. So it's a bad request because username is not there. Dot send errors message no user found. By the way, if it's a security concern for you that you do not want the client to know even if the user exists or not, you can send the same message depending on if the user is not found or if the password is invalid. Again by async. If user is found, then you do match equal to user dot. Remember we created the method check password checkpassword. So user dot check password if match, then we know that the user gave a valid username and password combination. So what we will do is we will now give back the token. So const token equal to user dot generate token, and we will do return res dot send an object token. This is same as saying this token or token. Again JavaScript saying. Okay, we send a token. Otherwise, we will do res dot status. Actually, this only status error invalid password. You can again have the same message for. You can also send status code 401 unauthorized. Again, this is one of the cases which has gray area. It's up to you to decide. Cool. We have done so much. Let's actually test it. And for testing, we will have to include our auth router in index.js. So app.use/api/auth, import it. So auth router. So we already registered this user here with username tichnas and password admin. Now let's try to log in. API/auth. Login is a post request actually. So body raw JSON username. What was the username? Username tichnas. Okay. Tichnas. Password admin. Send. We get the token. If you change the password, okay, we again got the token. That's weird. Let's figure out what happened. Go to auth. Okay, what the thing is, if you go to the user model where we defined where is it? Yeah, compare. So this compare actually returns a promise. So when we just did this, the match does not actually contain the boolean true or false. It contains a promise. So it's always a valid thing. So we need to await here. So wait for checking password because it's asynchronous, it's a promise, and then if it's true, then generate, otherwise give invalid password. So go to Postman, send it again, invalid password. If you do admin, it gives a token. If you do admin 3, again invalid password. If you change the username, tichna, no user found. Cool. So this is how authentication works, basically registration and logging. But like I said, token must be sent every time the client makes a request. So how to handle that on the server side? So either in all the routes you create, so like you have one route here, let's say you have 10-20 routes here, 50 routes in the post, 10 more routes in to-dos. In each of those hundreds of routes, you either manually check for token. If token is valid, then figure out the user ID from that, and from that user ID figure out the user. You can do that, or you can do a much more efficient way. So what Express offers us is something called as middleware. Middleware are basically nothing but a function which will run before calling the routes. So you can have one middleware for checking the authentication. You can have another middleware for doing something else. So let's say you can have two set of authentication. First is general authentication, and second is, so let's say you are editing some post and you are viewing some post. For viewing some post, you want the user to be authenticated, but it doesn't matter which user it is. In case of editing a post, you first obviously want the user to be authenticated, and secondly, you want to make sure that whatever post the user is editing, the user must be the owner of that post. Now, if this is something you do a lot of times, like checking whether the user is the owner of this post, you can abstract this whole thing in a separate function instead of checking it every time in a route. And obviously, normal authentication is something you will do a lot of times, so it makes a lot of sense to abstract that in a function. And these functions are called middleware. So whenever the client makes a request, things will go to middleware first. It's up to the middleware to do some stuff and then decide what the next route will do. I will obviously show you. So I will create a new folder, middleware. Inside that I will create a new middleware auth.js. Inside this I will create a function, export default function auth. So router takes 2 arguments, request, response. Middleware takes 3 arguments, request, response and next. Request and response are literally the same objects we have. Request contains everything, the parameters, the body and everything. Response, if you want to send a response right now. Basically these 2 things are same as what we use in all the routes. We have another thing which is next. So the thing is, it's up to the middleware to decide whether to proceed ahead or not. If the middleware decides to proceed ahead, it should call a function next. If your middleware does not call this next function, the execution will be stopped after middleware. Okay, so I will explain this later actually. For now, let's do obviously try catch. Error console dot error err and res dot send error. I'm not focusing on writing the whole JSON here, but hope you get the idea. So what we will do is, first of all, take the token, and again it's a standard practice to not send token in the parameters and also not send the token in the request body. Tokens are generally sent in request headers. So we will do const token equal to req dot headers, header actually. And the thing is, there are multiple ways. So there is a way to use authorization and bearer token. This is a valid thing, many people use this. Another is x auth token and simply token. This is also valid. I mean, there are just different things people follow, so it's up to you what to follow. I will do X or token. Once you get the token, now you want to decode it. Remember, we created a token by encoding the data, the user ID, with the secret key. Now we want to decode it back. So what we will do is, first of all, import JWT from JSON Web Token, and again put a try catch. I will tell you why. And here you do const decoded equal to JWT dot, it's actually verify, so verify token and secret key, which is process.env.secret key. And what we will do is, on our request object, we will add a custom attribute, a custom key with the name of user, and that will be decoded.user. Because when we encode it, let me actually show you. So when we encoded, our payload was an object containing a key user and then user data. In this case, we are only using ID. ID is more or less enough. So while decoding, this decoded will be of the same structure as payload, because you encoded payload, now you are decoding that. So it will also contain a user, and we attach the decoded user, which only contains ID by the way, to the request object. Cool. And if there is error, now there is a difference between this error and this error. This error is basically due to return res dot, you can set the status 400 or 401 and send invalid token. So I mean, if there is error in this part, which means JWT.verify failed, which means that your token is invalid, then it's an invalid token. If it's general error, then obviously there is some issue in your server side or something. Cool. And now if you save it, this is our middleware. Let's do what? Users. We had a user edit, right? User, yeah. So for using middleware, you just put it here. So auth. So it actually takes any number of argument. You can like have auth 2, auth 3. I am naming these auth, but these are just functions which you have abstracted away. In this case, it's only auth. Okay, and it is auto imported from this middleware. Now here let's print req user, req.user. Now a spoiler alert, we won't get this console.log statement. Let me actually show you. So this is post, this is put. Let's send it. Okay, we need to add a token. So in Postman, go to headers, add a key X auth token, copy the token you got after logging in. So you need to send a valid username and password. Copy this token, paste it here and send. Okay, this is taking a lot of time. Probably there is some issue, and the issue is it actually decoded it. It actually attached this, but now we neither did res.send to send the response. We didn't do this, and we also didn't call next to transfer the control to the next thing. And the next thing here is this. Okay, so you can have a series of middleware 1, middleware 2, middleware 3, and then the actual route. So middleware 1 will get the control first. If and only if it calls the next, then the control will go to middleware 2. From middleware 2, if and only if it calls the next function, then only it will go to the next middleware, and so on. And if all the middlewares like correspondingly call next, then only it will go to the actual route. So we will call next here. Okay, and send. Server, cool. Age is not defined. Wait, where am I using age? Okay, actually not updated. I am just gonna show you. Update I already showed. I just want to show how to use these things. res.send things worked. Send. So things worked, and if you see req.user is this ID. So now whenever you are updating a user, you won't take the ID from the parameters. You will take the ID from whatever we decoded from the token, because this is the ID of the current user. You want only the current user to change the details of itself. You don't want any user to change details of any other user just by giving the ID. Cool. So this mostly sums up what Express is and how you should use it. Couple of things I want to say. Again, it's very important to document everything, comment, have proper comments, and so on. Basically, good coding practices and coding quality. So you can put beautiful comments like this. So start it like this. Let me show you again. So in VS Code /** and then press enter. So you will get something like this. And now here you can say @route. You notice the change in color, right? So this is a special keyword. So @route, put the full route /API/users/ID. Then second thing, edit description. Edit name of current user. Actually, this ID won't be there, but because we now take the ID from token. But anyways, last, access private. So if there is some general route, you can have public access. If it's a private route, that means you need to be authenticated, you need to be logged in, then it's a private route. It's much better if you put this kind of comments on every route, just to make your code much more readable. Other than that, there are two kind of advanced things I would like you to explore. I will tell you the reason why they are important. First is pre or post action. So let's say a user owns multiple to-dos. Now, when for any reason the user is deleted from the database, then you want to automatically delete the corresponding to-dos. It does not happen that the user is deleted, but the to-dos are just hanging away in your database. It should not happen like this. Okay. So either you can do it manually. So whenever you are deleting the user, you can also delete the corresponding to-dos by finding them. But again, it might be possible in a small application, but in a big application, you do not know how many times there are different routes deleting some user here and there. You can't keep that track. So what you do is, just like we attach method to So just like we attach this method to the user schema itself, you attach certain functions to run either before something or after something. So you have something like pre-remove. So pre-remove, something like this. I don't remember the exact syntax, but this is something like this. So whenever in your code, anytime someone will do remove. So if you remember, we had user.find by ID and remove. So we had this thing. So either find by ID and remove, find one and remove, anything. So anywhere in your code, whenever someone removes the user, then you can do pre-remove. So before removing the user, actually remove all the to-dos. You can also do post-remove, but there is a thing you need to take consider of. So the thing is, your to-dos will contain a foreign key of user. So basically to-do will point to user. You cannot delete the user before deleting the to-dos because to-dos are dependent on user. If you delete the user, at that point only the to-dos object will become invalid because it will have an invalid foreign key. It will have an invalid pointer. So you will have to, before removing the user, you have to remove all the to-dos. So you will give a pre-remove function. So before removing the user, you remove all the to-dos. Good. This is a valid use case. Second, a little more advanced thing is sessions. So if you have some experience with SQL databases, what you do is you do certain operations and do commit so as to have atomic transaction. So let's say you have 5 different statements. Either your database will execute all of them successfully or none of them will be completed successfully. So in this case, we are doing remove to-dos before removing the user. But it might happen that some to-dos are removed, some to-dos got some error while removing, and you just stop there. So now your database is kind of in an inconsistent state because either you completely do the thing or you don't do it at all. It shouldn't happen that you have your database hanging in middle state. Okay, so it might happen that someone asks you to delete this user, you deleted all the to-dos, but then some error came in deleting the user, so you are saying, okay, some things happened. Now the user is there, but to-dos are gone. So this is weird, right? For the end client, either you give success, or if there is some error, you give error. But it should not happen if something succeeded, something does not. It is very much implementation dependent. So the end user should not know that half of the things worked, half of the things are not work, and there is no way to complete the full transaction or even recover the things you did. Okay, so you want a way to either do everything or do none of them. But whenever you do await, so even if you do not do this pre-remove thing, you do manually, then also this can happen, right? There can be cases when all the to-dos are removed but some error occurred. So to do this, we have something called as sessions in Mongoose or MongoDB, whatever. So sessions ensure that everything you do inside a session is treated as one atomic transaction. So basically, first you start a transaction, you do everything you want, and then you complete the transaction. Now, if there is some error, then MongoDB or Mongoose will ensure that whatever changes you have done will be rolled back. So your database will be in previous state. And if changes are successful, then your changes will be committed to the database. So either it's no actions at all or all the actions. It won't be in the middle state, middle inconsistent state. So I would like you to explore these two things, pre, post action and sessions. Again, if you do choose to explore, do let me know. It will kind of motivate me because I will know that you are learning. So do let me know in the comments if you have actually tried to figure out whatever problems you have faced and so on. And actually that's all for the Express tutorial. I know 90% of the things I discussed is not really Express syntax per se, but mainly about what you should be doing. Because like I said initially, you should not only focus on completing the given task, implementing the given feature. If you want a long-term career as a developer, you should also focus to learn things the best way possible, do things the best way possible. And that's what the video was about. I hope you literally learned something. If yes, do press the like button, share it with your friends, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe to stay updated because probably I will add more videos. So see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.